Hello everyone, my name is Shambhavi and today we are going to discuss about class methods as alternative constructor. So basically I'm just telling you that what are the topics which we are just going to discuss today. Okay, so the first topic for today is class methods as alternative constructor. The second one is static method, third one is super, fourth is abstract class and method. So these are the four topics which we are going to cover in today's video, right? So basically in the last video I have just told you that basically like how we just make classes, and in that I have just told you about the static method also, right? So these were the things which I have just I have covered till class methods, right? I haven't told about static method. I have told that what is class method, basically how we make class methods, right? Now today I'm just going to tell you that class methods as alternative constructor, that basically how these like class methods are treated as an alternative constructor, how we can just make them, followed by static methods, super and abstract class and method. Fine. So these are the things which we're just going to cover today. Okay, let's get started with quickly. So firstly here what I would do, so basically as we are dealing with the oops concept, right? So what I would do, I would just firstly write here the class. Okay, I will just make a class. So for that I would just use a keyword that is class. Okay, so class, and here I will just give the name for the class as student. Okay, student is the name of my class which I have just declared here. Fine. Now inside coming to my class, what I would just do, I would just say make a class variable. Okay, so I'm just taking the same example which I have taken in the previous part of this video, that is part 9, so that you can just cope up with the things very easily. You do not get confused with the things that okay, for like in that you have taken this and now this like you are taking, so no, not that like that. So I'm just going to take the similar example only. Fine. So I would just take number of subjects. So number of subjects was the class variable which we have basically made in the previous video also. So I've just declared a class variable, and name for that class variable was to number of subjects. Okay. Now after that what I'm going to give, let's say I just give it a value as 5. Okay, so this number of subjects is equal to 5. Now what I would do, I would just write here def underscore underscore init. So basically the self is automatically passed, and now what does this self and init function means? So these are the constructors. Now basically what do constructor do, and basically what we just call as constructor, what we can give a definition for a constructor, all that things I have already covered in my previous video of this series, and that was part 9, right? So if you just want, you can just go and refer and then see these things in that video, so I'm just not going to repeat it for now. Okay, so I just wrote def underscore underscore init and underscore underscore, in bracket the self is automatically passed. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give several parameters here. The first one is a name, the second one is a standard, and third one is a section. Okay, now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to write self dot name is equal to a name. Fine. Then self dot standard, self dot standard. So basically here what we are just going to take, we are just going to take some name of a student as a class name. Also suggests that the class for the which you have taken as an example for now, that is student. Fine. So that means here I'm just going to write all the things and relate all the things from students only. So the name for the student, the standard and the section. So these three are the parameters which I have just passed in the init function. Fine. So self dot standard is equal to a standard. And at last what I'm just going to write, I'm going to write self dot, and the last parameter was section. So self dot section is equal to a section. Okay. So fine. Okay. PIOM. Fine. So these were the things which we were having in the init function. I'm just written all that things. Fine. Now I just want to make one more function this side. I will just make a function, and the name for this function I would be just giving as details, def details. Fine. And inside this self will be automatically passed. I need not to just pass that thing, it is automatically passed. Let me just go down. Fine. Now inside this details function, what I am going to do is that I'm going to pass a f string. I'm going to return an f string, right? What is this f string basically? For this also I have already made a very detailed video, so you can just go and check out the parts for, or check out this playlist for Python for beginners in English. So you can just got that thing. And if you just want to see this thing, if you string, understand some things in Hindi. So for Hindi also I have a separate playlist, that is Python for beginners in Hindi. So you can just refer any of the one which you want, English or Hindi. Fine. So in the both that all the topics are covered. Fine. So I just return if string, and then I would just write here as name is, and in the bracket I would just write self dot name, and I would just write standard is, and in the bracket I would just write self dot standard. Fine, just T-N-T-A-R-T. Fine, so this is over. This is done. Like my function has been made here. That was details. And inside that details, I have just returned an if string. So return if, and the name is self dot name, and standard is self dot standard. Fine. So after just coming out of this function, now let me just scroll to the final. Like, okay. Just let me do one more thing. Okay, so I guess it's enough, right? It's fine. Okay. So def details for the function which I have just made right now. Now what I am going to do here is that I'm going to make a class method. So how do we just make that class method? So for making a class method, firstly what we do, we just take the @ sign. So this @ sign, and after that when I'm just going to write class method. So this is the basically way how we just make a class method, right? So this is the way for declaring a class method. Firstly, you need to just put the @ sign, and after that you just need to write class method. So this is the basic way for declaring, for making a class method, right? So it is something like decorators. We also like make the decorators using this @ sign, right? So it is something like that only, but yeah, we cannot say that class method is a decorator. No, I cannot say that. Okay. These are constructors, and like I just told that we also just denote and just write the decorators using the @ sign. So I just told that thing. Okay. Now here I would just make one more function, and like I would just give the name to my function as change subject. Change subject. Okay. Change underscore subject. And inside this, the CLS is automatically class. So the CLS means my class. Okay, class. Fine. So CLS refers to my class. Okay, so I will put a comma, and here I will pass a parameter, and that parameter is leaves. Okay, leaves. Okay, so basically this is not the plant leaves. It is a leaves that particular student is taking this much particular leaves in like we are just taking example for a student, right? So this leaves basically belong to that student only, that for this much time the student is taking leave from the school. Fine. So this is the whole idea behind it. Okay, now here I will just write CLS. Now CLS is what? CLS is like describing my class. So I will just write CLS dot number of subjects is equal to leaves. So here what I have done, I have just written that CLS dot number of subjects is equal to leaves. Fine. Now what I would do, I would just make one more class. Fine. I would just make one more class, that is class method. One more class method. Fine. And let me go down. Okay, so this is @ class method. Now here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make one more function, and the name for this function I would be writing from and underscore str. Let's say this is an example, and here I have just taken class method. I just made a class method, and after that I have just declared a function, and the name for that function is from underscore str. Fine, and is CLS. CLS is like that class, like whenever we just declare a class method. So after that, whenever we make a function, the CLS automatically comes here. I would just put a comma, and I would just write your leaves. Fine. So yeah. And now what else I would do? I would just not write leaves here, like leaves for the above one. Here what I'm just going to write, I'm just going to write a string, because afterwards I'm just going to pass a string. Fine. That is why I'm just going to write here as a string. Let me go down. So here I will just write return, and basically what it will return, it will return CLS, and in brackets string dot split, and basically I would just put a dash. So basically this means that it will return my string in the split form. Fine. Okay. Now coming out of my class, I would just make the class objects for my class. So the object first which I have made is 1. Okay, 1 is equal to student, and inside this what I'm going to pass, I'm going to pass several names and the things which I have just entered. So name is Ria, standard is 10th, and section is A. Fine, I will just do the same thing using 2 also. I will just write 2 is equal to student. Given I would given I would give a name, Seema, and the standard is 12, and basically the section is B, let's say. Fine, I will just go more down. Similar way, I would just make a 3 one also. Fine, I will just write 3 is equal to, I will just write here as a student. Now what I'm just going to use here, I'm going to use one of my functions which I have made above side, and that function was from underscore history. So from underscore history is the function which I had just made that side. So I'm just going to use it here. While like making the object for my class, I'm just using that. So from underscore history, and here what I would do, I would just pass the values as let's say that is also Ria, and standard is 11, and the section is C. Fine. So like basically in the above side, I have just like written the split and then that. So that is why I have just written the values here like this one. Okay. Now what I would just write, I would write print, and inside this what I would write, print 3 dot. Let's say I just want to print number of subjects using the 3. Okay. Print now 3 number of subjects. I will just run that thing now. Okay. So right click and then run tutorial. Fine. So here what I just got the output. I got the output as 5, right? So this is the 5 is the correct one. So let me just like open this thing for a while and let me go above and declare and see that wherever I have declared this number of subjects. So number of subjects is equal to 5. So this is done. Okay. So this is absolutely right. So here I have like just made the class methods, and yeah, you can just use that print 3 dot name or 2 dot name and all that thing. You can just use all these things on your own. I'm not gonna show that thing because in the like previous part of this video I have told the things very detailed, and I have told the things 2-3 times in that video. Fine, so I'm not going to repeat it now. Okay. So this was about like how we can just declare the class method as an alternative constructor. Fine. So here what I have done, I have like taken these two classes and I have just made the class methods and then used them. Fine. So this was about using the class methods as alternative constructor. Now let's move towards the static method. Okay, so the static method is also a little bit of same like this only. So for that what I'm just going to take, I'm just going to use the same example which I have taken right now, but I'm not going to copy that thing, right? Because like it's from my code or it's from other code, I never copy the things. So that is why I will not copy that. I will just write that thing. Fine. So I will just write the class. So while writing, I will just explain your things one more so that you can just get more clear idea about this thing. Okay. So class is the student. So here basically this is the way for making a class. So I just like declare the keyword that is class, and after that I just wrote the name. So name for my class is student. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to like give some class variable number of subjects. Okay. Number of subjects is the class variable which I have just declared, and I will just initialize a value as 5. Okay, so I have initialized and given a value 5 into my variable that is number of subjects. Fine. So number of subjects is equal to 5. Now what else I have? I will just write here def underscore init and then self. Okay, so inside the self I will just pass it with parameters, first with a name. Then second what I have a standard, and the third I have a section. Right? So these are the 3 parameters which I have just passed here. Now what I need to do, firstly I need to just go back. Fine. Now what I just need to write here as that, I would just write here as self dot name is equal to a name. Fine, then I would just write self dot standard is equal to a standard. Fine. And at last I would just write self dot section is equal to a section. Fine. So this is like about declaring the init function and making the self. Fine. Now what I would do, I would just make another function as we were just making that side. So I would just write def details. Fine. So def details is the function which I have just made right now. So I will just put the bracket and this self is automatically passed. Now what I would just do, I would just pass return a string. Return an f string, right? Return f. And here I would just write as return f. Name is, and in the bracket I would just write self dot name, and standard. And standard is okay. Let me go down because like I hope you are not able to see that thing. Fine. BARD. Okay. So the standard is, and in the bracket I will just write self dot a standard. Fine. Okay. DARD. Fine. This is like fine. So here I just made that function that is details, and here I just return an if string that is return if and all the things. Fine. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make that class method, fine, that we have just made previously. So at the rate and then class method, I'm just again repeating the things that are like if we just want to make a class method, so what we do, we just like firstly we define the at the rate, we just like put the sign that is at the rate, and then we just mention the class method, fine. Okay, now here I would make the another function. So okay, so that function is def. Okay, I would just repeat that change underscore subjects. If okay, I just written the wrong spelling and it was like too much wrong. Okay, so def. Okay, I'm just writing. Okay, leave that subjects. Fine. Change underscore subjects. Inside that, the CLS is automatically passed as I have just declared a class method. So that is like automatically passed. Now what I would just write, I would just write CLS dot number of subjects, not number of leaves. Okay, sorry, number of subjects is equal to leaves. Fine. This was the same thing which we have done previously. Now I would just go more down, and here I would just go here, and I would just make another class method, okay, at the rate, and then I'm just going to declare a class method here. So I would just write as class and then method. Now I would just make that same class which we have made that side. So I would just write def from underscore, okay, from underscore str, and in the bracket CLS automatically there, and here I just write as string. Fine. Now what I would just write, I would just write return, and I would just write CLS for class. Fine. I would just write a string dot split, and in bracket I would just put this sign, hyphen sign. Fine. So this is done. This is the previously thing which we have just done till now. Now what I just make a static method. So for making a static method also, the procedure is same. I would just put at the rate, and here I would just write a static method. Fine. So this is basically how you make a static method in this classes, like classes and objects, right? So this is about the making of the static method. Now what I would do, I would just write after the static method is written. Now I would just write def. Okay, I would just make another function that is print str. Fine, and in the bracket I would just pass as a string. Fine. So okay, def print str, and in bracket what I have passed the string. Now here I can just write anything, right? So I would just write here print and the semicolon, print my name is, and I will just leave a space, and I would just put a plus sign, and I would just write here as a string. So a string is the parameter which I have just passed inside my function which I have just made, that is print str. Right? So I will just put a underscore. So it's print underscore str. So print underscore str is the function which I have just made, and inside that function I have just passed a parameter, and that parameter is a string. So after that I just print my name is plus a string. Okay. Now this is over. Now what I will do, I will just do the thing same which we were doing previously. I would just write here 1 is equal to, and yeah, 1 is the object which I have just made for my class, that is student, and I would just like write some values. So yeah, this thing I can just copy because like okay, so okay, let's not do that thing. Let's write on our own. Okay, then I would just write 10, and then I would just write a. Fine. Then okay, I would need to remove that. Okay, then I would just write as 2. Fine, so 2 and then student. DENT in the bracket I would just write as Seema. Then I would just pass 12. And at the last I would just write at the section as B. I would just do the same thing for 3. I would just write 3. I would just write here student dot. Now here I just use that function which we were just using previously, from underscore str. And here I would just write as ria dash 12 dash and okay 11 and dash it is C. So yeah, and let me go down. Okay, I will just make the capital C, so it's okay. Okay, so this was like making the objects from my class. Now what I would just write, I would just write PRI. Yeah, So I would just write student. Okay, S should be capital for the student. So it is student dot print is print underscore str. Print underscore str was the function which I have just like made right now, right? And inside this, what I would just pass, I would just pass a Shambhavi. Okay, so what I have just done right now, let me show you that thing. So here I just made that a starting method, right? The starting method, and I just name it as a like given its function as print underscore str. Okay. After that, I just passed a parameter that is a string inside my function which I have just made, that is print underscore str. What I did next, excuse me, what I did next, basically I just like used print, and then I just wrote my name is plus a string. Fine, so this is done. And at the last, when I just made the objects for my class, then I just use the name of my class, and then I just use the function name that is like print underscore str, and now I just pass that string. So now when I'm going to run my program, so let me run that thing. So here I just got the output, and that output is my name is Shambhavi, right? So this is the output which I am getting, and that is my name is Shambhavi. So what I just wanted to tell you from here, that we can use this function from my class itself, and this is the basically way for declaring a static method in classes and objects in the Python programming, right? So this is done. Now moving towards this third topic for today, and that is superclass. Now I'm just going to tell you that basically what is the super keyword. Okay, so here I have already written something that init is the first function which is called when instance is created. Yeah, that is right. That thing I have already told you in the inheritance, when we just like learned about the inheritance in part 8. So in that I had already told you that init is the first function which is called when instance is created, right? Then what next I have? So basically next I have super is a built-in function. Excuse me, super is a built-in function which refers the proxy of object which helps to refer the superclass. Okay, so what does basically we mean from this sentence which I have written right now? So we will just see this through an example. Fine. So firstly, what I'm just going to do is that I'm just going to make a class. So I will just make a class, and let's say for now I will just change the class which I'm making. I will just name the class as 1, and I will just put this one. Okay, so now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to write the function. So I would just write def, and then it is underscore init, and then underscore and then brackets. So the self is automatically passed here. Right now what I would do, I would just pass one more parameter here, and that parameter is name. Fine. So I have done that thing. What else I have? I will just reuse the print statement. So print, I would just put this like semicolon. I would just write 1 underscore init underscore. I would just leave space aside. Okay, and what I would do, I would just put a comma, and here I would just use that name. Fine. So 1 is my class name, right? 1 is the name of my class which I'm just using here, and what I'm just using, I'm using my function that is init, using my class name that is 1. Fine, so this is done. Now what else I would do, I would just go down. Now here I would just make a new class. Okay, now the next class would be, let's say the name for the class is 3. Fine, put the colon. Again I would just make a function def underscore init and an underscore and a bracket. So it is self. Now inside this, what I'm going to do, I'm again going to pass the same parameter that is name. Fine. I would come down here, I would just write print. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to write 3. Instead of that 1, I'm just going to write 3 underscore init, and then again underscore. I would put a comma, and here I would just write as name. Name is the like argument which parameter which I have just passed inside my function, right? So this is done. Now what I have here? Here I would be making another class. The name for the new class would be 2. Class and then 2. Here what I am going to do, I'm just going to like pass my class 3 and 1. 3 and 1 class inside this 2 class. So basically this is a type of inheritance, right? Now which type of inheritance it is, I'm not going to tell that thing. You will just reply to me in the comment box that basically what type of inheritance it is. Fine. So I have written class 2, and then in bracket I have written 3 comma 1. So I have inherited the 3 and 1 classes in the class that is 2. I would again use def underscore init, and then okay 1 init underscore and then self. Now, what do I like? What will I write? I would just write here as print. Fine. So I would just write print, and here I would just write 2 and space underscore underscore init underscore underscore. That is the same thing which I'm just like writing from the very first one. And here what I am going to do is that I'm going to use my keyword, that is super. Fine. So I've just used my super keyword. So super, I would just write this bracket. I would just put dot underscore underscore in it. Fine. So inside this bracket, what I'm going to write, I'm just going to write the name, that is Ria. Fine. Now what will happen here? Let me just make the object. Okay. I would just make the object, and here what I would just write, I would just write t is equal to, I will just put the bracket. And now I would just write here as print and 2 dot underscore underscore mro underscore underscore. Now, what is this basically mr? Let me quickly run that and then I will just let you know. Fine. Okay. Basically, what is happening here, right? See, first what I am getting the output, I am getting 2 underscore underscore init. So this is basically for the, okay, let me do one thing. Let me comment this thing for a while. We comment in and like now let me just run the program. Fine. Now what I am getting here is that firstly what is happening, firstly I am getting the output as 2 underscore underscore init underscore underscore. So where I have just declared that thing. So I have written this thing inside my function, that is 2, right? So this firstly this print statement is doing its work and it is giving me the output, that is print. Inside the print I have written 2 underscore underscore init underscore underscore. So it is giving me the respective output. Then what is happening? Then I'm just getting 3 here. Now from where this I'm getting this 3 underscore underscore init? So I'm just getting it from this class, the class which I have made 3. So inside this class in the print statement I have written 3 underscore init and underscore init. Fine. So I'm just getting the output from here. And what else I am getting? Here what I have just passed, I have passed as Ria. So here whatever the in my 3 class there was name, right? So I'm just getting this name, that is Ria here. Now let's see one thing. If I just interchange these things here, if I just write 1 here and instead of this 1 I just replace, I just interchange both of the classes with each other, then see what's the output. Now you can just have a look that firstly what I am getting. Firstly I am getting 2. So that is correct actually, because whenever we just run a function though, so basically whatever the class is present at the very first, okay, this is my object. From here my control will go to upside, and basically whatever the class it will find first, whatever it is written here, it will automatically print me that thing very firstly. So it is just printing me 2 underscore underscore init underscore underscore, because I have written this thing here. Now what else it is doing, it like I have just inherited a class 1 and 3. The class which I have written as first, which I have inherited as first, that is 1. So now it is going into that class, leaving this 3 class, it is now leaving that one. It is going into my class, that is 1. Fine. So after in this one class what I have written, okay, just let me give a little bit space. Fine. So inside this one class what I have written, I have made the function, and inside that function I have written 1 underscore underscore init and then underscore underscore, and even I have given the name, and that name is Ria. Fine. So this is basically what is happening. Now I was just telling you about that thing which was MRO. Fine. I would just now uncomment this thing and I will just run the program for a while and let you know that thing also. Fine. Basically let me increase the font. Now what it is telling me, it is telling me that basically it tells me the order. Order in the sense that which class is first executing, then what, and then what, and then what. Fine. So now what it is telling me first, that your class main.2. So it is printing your main.2. Basically your first the class that is 2, that is running very first. Why it is like so? Because I have right now told you that basically whatever the class is like we have written very first, so that will be executed. Now what next class which is getting executed, that is 1. So why this one? Because inside this brackets when I have inherited the classes, so in that inheritance I have used this class that is 1 in the first position, and I have written this 3 in the second. If I just interchange these values once again, so I would just write here as 3, and now I would just change it from 3 to 1. And now when I would just run this program, so you can just see that the MRO will automatically change. So firstly I am getting 2, and then I am getting 3, and after that I am getting 1. Fine. So this is the main idea behind using this super class. So what I now mean from this thing, super is a built-in function which refers the proxy which helps to refer the super class. Fine. Now moving towards the last topic for today, and that is abstract class. Now I'm going to tell you that basically how we make an abstract class in the classes and objects topic for the Python programming. Okay, so for making the abstract class, what we have even one module that is used for importing, that module is used for importing, and after that only we can make an abstract class in our Python program. So for that I'm just write from ABC. Okay, from ABC import capital A, capital B, capital C, comma abstract method. Okay. So what here I have written from ABC. Now ABC is one of my module, you can say import ABC, this capital ABC, and abstract class. So ABC is one of my libraries from which I'm just importing these two things, that is capital ABC and abstract method. Fine. So this is over. Now what I would just make, I will just make a class here as mother. Let's say I'm just making a class, the name for that class is mother. In bracket, what I'm going to pass ABC. Fine. So because I have just used this, I've just imported this thing, so I'm just using one. That's right. What I would do, I would just make an abstract class. So for making this static method and class method, abstract class, all for this procedure same, I will just put the @ and here I would just write as abstract method. Fine. So this is basically how we just make an abstract method. Now what I would do, I would write here as def. Fine. After this def, I will just write here as def1, and in bracket the self is automatically passed, right? So this happens basically, the self is automatically passed. So def1, and in bracket I just wrote self. Here what I would do, I would just not write anything, I would simply pass. Okay, I would just not write anything, I would just not write any program inside this inside this function, that is one. I would simply pass that thing. Now what is my next thing which I'm just going to do? I'm just going to make another function, that is 2. Fine. And inside this, what I'm just going to write, I'm going to write print concrete class. Concrete and class. Okay. Why I just wrote this thing, I will just let you know this thing in a while. But before that, just let me complete the whole program which I'm just trying to write. Fine. So this one, I have just made the class. I will just make another class. Just let me go down for this, and yeah. So I will just make another class, and the name for this class would be daughter. Fine. I will just put that bracket, and here I'm just inheriting. This is called a single inheritance. So basically my class was mother, and that mother class I have just inherited that into my daughter class. Now just go again down. Fine. Now here what I'm just going to use, I'm just going to use the same function name, that is 1. Inside that self is passed. And what I'm just going to write, I'm going to write print and then abstract class. Fine. Print and then abstract class, I'm just going to use that thing. Fine. Now what I would just do, I've just come out of my function, that is b is equal to daughter. I'll just make object for my daughter class. Fine. DAUGHT here in the brackets. So let me go more down. Fine. So b is the object which I have just made for my daughter class. Now from b I would just try to access 1. 1 is the function which we have made, right? So I will just run that thing. So now what it is giving me, it is giving me the output as abstract class, right? So this is right. Now what I would do, I would just try to use my function 2 also. So I would just write b dot and then 2 and then again bracket. Now when I would just run this program, see what I'm just getting here, I'm just getting here as the output, and that is concrete class, right? So using my object for my daughter class, I can access 1 and 2, both of these things, right? Because I have just inherited with this mother class inside my daughter class. Fine. So I can just use both of the things together. So this is basically how we just make an abstract class, and this is basically how we just write the program for making an abstract method. Now what does this actually abstract method mean? So basically here I have just written @ and then abstract method. Fine. So this is the way for declaring this. So let me just quickly open the OneNote, and here I would just write open as this Shambhavi's notebook. And okay, so let's quickly see that what is this abstract class. Let me see that have I just taken any particular name for it, or I haven't given any name. I just need to see that thing here. Okay, so just wait for a while, and I will just let you know all the things in a while. Okay, so it's like I will just go to 11. Okay, so this is about the function catching. So we have just discussed the abstract class before function catching itself. So I would just open the sixth one. Okay, so this was like not the one, and I will just open 4. Okay, so for now, let's leave that thing. I will just let you know here itself that basically what is this abstract class. So for that abstract class, what we do, we just declare this at the rate sign. Okay, and this basically we just write abstract, and here we just make the method. Okay, so like using after this abstract method, we can get access to any of the functions which is like present in my like any of the classes, right? So this was a basic idea using the abstract method. Fine. So we have just discussed about the 4 topics for now, and that are class methods as alternative constructor, second is static method, third is superclass, and the fourth is abstract class and method. So these are the 4 topics which we have just discussed for right now, and we are just left with one more last part for the series, and like in that we'll be covering all of the just the topics which are just left here. Okay, so this is all for this video. Till then, thank you and bye bye. What are decorators? And then we're just going to see one example that basically how we declare the decorators in Python. Then we'll be seeing that what is encapsulation and polymorphism. We are going to see the examples and definitions for both of these, and then we'll move towards the setter and getter methods, which are basically used in the classes. Fine. So these are the 5 topics for today which we are going to cover right now. Fine. So we'll be just taking it in a way that firstly we'll just go to the OneNote to understand some theoretical part about the topics, and then we'll just come back to this PyCharm and do the practical. So the first topic for today is decorator. So let me quickly go to the OneNote, and here you see one definition for the decorator. So I hope it is visible. So fine, yeah, it's fine. Absolutely fine. Okay, so it is written a decorator in Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or a class. A reference to a function func or a class C is passed to a decorator, and the decorator returns a modified function or class. The modified functions or classes usually contains calls to the original function func or class. Basically here what it is written that what is a decorator and what does decorators do. So decorator in Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function of a class. So here from here what we can just see that what is decorator basically used for. Decorator is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or a class in Python. Fine. So if, without just understanding the whatever whole is written, you can just understand it in a way. If you're just not able to grasp so much of content or so much of definition for this, you can just understand it in a way that a decorator in Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or a class. Simple, very simple definition for a decorator. Now basically how we just write a decorator, how just we declare a decorator. So let me just quickly show you right here, and then we just move towards the Python. We are going to see the example. So I will just write as this at the rate. And after using this at the rate in front of this at the rate, we basically write the decorator, and we just make the decorator, and we just write the short form for the decorator. Fine. So let's say I just want to make a decorator, and the name for the decorator is decorator1. Fine. So I would just write here as decorator1. So at the rate and then decorator1. This is basically how we just declare a decorator in Python. This is how we just make a decorator. Fine. So this is the way for making the decorator. Now what is this decorator1? Let's say this is a name of one class. Let's say I have just made a class, and that class is having one name, and that the name for that class is decorator1. Let's say, fine. So what I have done, I have just made the decorator for the respective class. The name for that class is decorator1. I have just made the decorator for that respective class. As I just wrote here that basically what I just wrote, and decorator is Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or class, right? That I just mentioned that is used to modify a function or a class. That is why let's say this is one of my functions. Okay, let's say this is one of my functions. Fine. So I just wrote decorate1, and at the front of it I just put the decorate at the rate sign. So this is basically how we just initialize and how we just make a decorator in this Python programming. Fine, let's quickly move towards the PyCharm, and let's have an example for those decorators. And yeah, let's move on to the thing. So just let me go to the side, and yeah, I just guess it is totally zooming. Yeah, it's zooming. Fine. And I would just put a hash sign and I would just write here as decorators. Fine. Okay, so I would must write single O. Fine. Now let's quickly move towards the things for our. Fine. Like for the first time, what I'm just gonna make here, I'm just going to make a function. I would just write here if you in C1. Let's say this is one of my functions which I would not include C. Fun1. This is one of my functions which I just made that right now. Def fun1 and in the brackets. Fine. Now what I'm just going to write, I'm just going to write print and here I would just write as fun with data science. Let's say I just wrote the channel name and that is fun with data science. Fine. What I would just come out. Now here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do one thing. I'm going to take one variable that is fun2. Fine. This fun2 is one of the variables which I have just taken right now. Now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to put a equal to sign and this is fun1. Now basically what I am doing, I'm making a copy of my fun1 function which I have made and making a copy of this function and saving it into another variable and that variable name is fun2. Okay, now just here pay attention and listen to my words very careful that what I am just doing here, I'm just making a copy of my fun1 function, okay, in which I have stored print fun with data science. I'm just making a copy of that and I'm storing that copy in the another variable and name for that variable is fun2. Fine. Here what I would do, I would just write del. Okay, now what is the del used for? You can just understand from the name itself that this is used for deleting the any object or for deleting anything, any variable in function, something like that. Fine. Okay. And now if I just delete fun2 and yeah, and now I would just write as fun2 and just call it. Then let's quickly print that and let's see that basically what is gonna happen here. Okay, so now just see here. Now what it is saying to me, it is saying to me that name fun2 is not defined. Fine, because what I have done, I have just deleted this fun2. And now in place of this fun2, if I'm just going to call my fun1 function, then what is happening? See here, what I just got the output that is fun with data science and fun with data science. So why I just got 2 because one's from here and one from here. Fine. So this is basically what I am doing here. Right, so I have just deleted fun2 and then when I'm just printing this fun1, then also it is just giving me the output. Fine, because I have made a copy. Okay, so this is the basically reason for this. Okay, this was one example and you can just treat it as example. Fine. Now let's move towards the next thing for today. I would just make one more function and now the name for my function would be, let's say, fun return. Okay, fun return. Def and then fun return and in bracket what I'm just gonna do, I'm just gonna pick a variable parameter num. Okay, now I'm just going to give some conditions and before giving that condition, let me just quickly connect to my internet because basically I don't know what has happened here. Fine. So okay, let it be connected or something, whatever like it wishes. Fine. So now what is happening here, I'm just writing if. Now I am having certain conditions. Okay, if num is equal to 0. Okay, so basically what it is saying, if the num is equal to 0, num is one of my variable which I have taken. I am given passed a variable here also. Okay, just hold on for a second. And now once more, let me just check out that. Fine, now it will be disconnected. Fine. So basically, if num is equal to 0, now what I have a print statement here. Fine. So print and the bracket. Fine. And instead of print, what I would just write return print. Print. Fine. Now, here what I have done, I have taken a function that is fun return. And in bracket, I have passed a parameter that is num. After that, I have given the condition if num is equal to 0, then return print. Fine. And the second condition for now is if. Okay, so if num is equal to 1. If num is equal to 1, then just 1 second. Fine. And then this is what return sum. Fine. So here what I have just done, I have just quickly done, okay, just 1 second. Let me quickly comment the above things, whatever I have just written here. Let me comment that thing. Fine. And let me again zoom in for the better visibility. Okay, fine. So here I have just made the function that is fun return, and inside that I have just passed one of the parameters, and that parameter is num. Now I have just put here a condition if num is equal to 0. Fine, the number which we are just gonna enter. If num is equal to 0, then return me print. Fine, and if num is equal to 1, then return me sum. Now after coming out of my function here, what I would do, I would just take a variable and I would just call my function. Fine. So basically calling of my function, I will just write my function name, that is fun return, and in bracket let's say I just pass the value as 0, and here I would just print a. Fine, now let's quickly run that thing. Okay, so basically now what it is giving me, it is giving me built-in function print, right? Because here what I have just written, I have returned the print, right? So here what I have passed the value, I have passed the value as 0, right? Here I have taken the variable that is a, and in that variable I have just called my fun return function, and inside that I have basically passed a value that is 0. So in the 0 condition, what we have given if num is equal to 0, return me print. So it is returning me the same thing, that built-in function print. Now if I just take it from 0 to 1, and now when I just run it once more, so let's see that basically what happens. Now what it is giving me, it is giving me built-in function sum. Okay, so here what we have done, we have written a function that is sum, and I have already told in my built-in functions, when I have just told about the function, that there are two types of functions, built-in function, user defined. When I have just told about the built-in function, that I have taken the same example for the sum itself, right? I have just told you how basically the sum function works. So if you just want to know about this thing a little bit more, you can just go and have a look over that video where I have just discussed about the functions. So I have just written here return and then sum. So basically the sum is one of my built-in functions. That is why again it is showing me built-in function sum. Fine. Now let's say I just make one more function. Okay, my function name would be def execute. Let's say execute is one of the one more function which I have just made that right now. So inside that execute, what I would just write, func. Fine. Func is you can treat it as a parameter, right? Because inside the brackets, whenever we pass something in the function, that is being treated as a parameter, right? Fine. So def execute bracket func. Now what I would just write here, I would just write func. What I would just write, I would just write here, okay, subscribe now. Okay, subscribe now, and I will just put this exclamation marks. Fine. Now just have a look that here, instead of that print statement, what I have written the parameter which I have just passed inside my function. My function was execute, right? And inside that function, what I have passed the parameter was func, that is func. Now, instead of the print statement, what I have written the same function, that is the same parameter which I have just passed inside my function, that is func. Now, I would just call my function. Function name was execute, right? And inside that, if I would just print here, right? Now, if I'm going to run my program, see what just output I am gonna get. So this built-in function sum is the above one output. So just let me do one thing this side. Let me just comment the above program which we have just written right now. Just let me do that thing quickly. Fine. And now once again I would just run this program. By the time you have run that on your own also. Fine. Now it is giving me the output as subscribe now. Now I have not written the subscribe now inside my print statement. Then also I'm just gonna I'm getting a subscribe now as the output. Why? Because here what I have done, I have taken a parameter, and that parameter was func, that is func. Now inside that parameter itself I have just passed the values, and when I have just called my function, so inside my whenever I just call my function, so in that calling of my function, I just wrote the print statement. Fine. So that is why that is the basic reason. That is why it is just giving me the desired output, and that is subscribe now. Now why I just told you all of these three examples, they are not related to decorators, right? Here I haven't make any decorator, nothing like that. But why I have just told you all these things? Because I just want to let you know one thing this side. So just let me quickly comment this, and I would just put okay down. And now here I will just put some write something. How I have a notice of that. Fine. So here what I just write, here we can insert function inside function. Okay, I'm just writing double I. We can insert function inside function as an argument. Okay, we can insert function inside function as an argument. And what is the second thing which I want to let you know? We can return a function. Fine. So here what we are doing, the previous example which we have seen, the previous example was this example, where what I have done, I have made a function that is fun return. Inside that what I have done, I have passed a parameter that was num, right? Now I have given certain conditions that if num is equal to 0, return print. Now what is this print? Print is a built-in function, right? So that is why here I have written the sentence outside that we can return a function. So what I am doing here, I am returning a particular function. That function is print. Moving towards the second condition, if num is equal to 1. So here I have just given the condition if the value which is stored as num is equal to 1. Then return me sum. So this, what does the sum mean? Sum is also a built-in function, right? So basically in this example, what I am trying to show you is that we can even return a function. So the second one line that we can return a function. Now what is this? We can insert function inside function as an argument. Now what does this term mean, that we can insert a function inside a function as an argument? Now here what I have done. This was my function, right? Execute was one of my functions, and inside that what I have given my another function, that is print. And basically whenever we just call our function and whenever we just like give any value, any string or something inside that function, we just treat it as an argument, right? That we are giving a particular argument to our function. Fine. So what happens, basically we have declared a parameter above side, and while calling, whenever we just declare or define our function, so at that place we just give the parameters to our function, and after like coming out of the function and calling the function, we pass the arguments to our function, right? So this basically happens here. Now the same thing is happening, that here what I have done, I have made a function that was execute. Now listen to my words very carefully this side. I have made a function that is execute. Inside that function I have passed a parameter, and that parameter was func, that is func. Now coming downside, inside this like function what I have just written, I have written func func, and here I have written this statement that is subscribe now. Now that's fine, okay? I came out of my function. I just called my function that is basically execute. And what else I have done? After calling of my function, I have just write here as print. Now what is this print? Print is also one of the function, right? So this is the statement is proof that we can insert function inside function as an argument. So this was basically the reason that I was just showing you these examples before like moving towards decorators. Now without wasting time, I would just quickly move towards the decorators. Fine, let's quickly see an example for the decorators. Okay. Let's say I just made a class here, function here, def decorate 1, fine, and inside that what is pass, I will just pass a func1. Okay, let's say this is one of my parameters which I just pass inside my function, that is decorate 1, and the parameter is func1, func1, fine. Inside this function I just made one more function, that is def exe, fine. I just put the brackets and then colon again. Now moving inside this function, what I just wrote, inside my print statement I just wrote like execute it, fine. Executed was one of my statements which I just wrote here. And yeah, and what else I just write, I would just like parameter that is func1, I just like inserted that, and I will even just put one more print statement here, and inside that print statement I would just write here as done, fine. Now what else I have? As I told you that basically how we make a decorator, and basically like for what we make a decorator. So basically when I just told you definition and the work, so what I just told you that we make a decorator for a function or a class, right? So I would just make the decorator to decorate 1. Now this is basically how we just declare a decorator. This is basically how we make a decorator, right? I would just write here at the rate and the name of my function for which I just want to make the decorator. So here for the example, I just want to make my function decorate1 as a decorator for me. So I have just done that thing. I just put the at the rate sign. And after putting that at the rate sign, I just wrote my function name for which I just want to make the decorator. Fine. Next, I would just make one more function. Let's say 1. Put the colon, and here I will just write print. And here I would just write here, print, let's say ABCD. Fine. Let's quickly run that program. Okay, so here I cannot say anything because I haven't called any functions, like I haven't called any function like that. So let's do one thing. Let's quickly call some function or something like that here. So what I would do, I would just like call my function, that is exe, and I will put the brackets. Fine, I will just run my program. Okay, so what it is giving me, exe is not defined. Okay, because okay, now what happens basically, I have made the decorator, that is decorate1. I just want to show that basically how we make the decorators here, right? Just let me do one thing. Just let me erase this thing, and in place of this, let me write 1. Now it would be called because 1 is the function. Fine, let me just quickly do that thing. Okay, so basically none type object is not callable. Okay, fine. Basically why it is showing me here, because here I have already made a decorator. So whenever we just make a decorator, so basically like this we cannot call. So just let me do one thing, and just let me return here as return exe. Now it's fine. Now let me just quickly run the program. Fine. So basically now I am just getting that output, that is executed ABCD, and now let's say that basically what order we are just getting here. Fine. Now basically what is happening here, firstly what I just missed that side, I just missed this return exe, okay, and I just cannot directly call the functions outside my function whenever I just made the decorator. So that is why it was resulting me error. Now the output which I am getting is a format of executed. Fine. Firstly, I'm getting the executed. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Now, after that, what I am getting here, I'm getting as ABCD. So, according to the program which we have written, it should be executed, then done, and then ABCD, right? But it is not showing me that thing. It is firstly showing me ABCD and then done. Why? Because just have a look here. Here what I have done, I have written this func func1. I have just called my function here, this parameter, right? That is func1, which I have just used. I have just written it here. Now, this parameter is of which function? This parameter is of the function that is decorate1. Fine. Now, here what I have done, I have made that decorator for the decorate1 function itself. So that is why it is giving me that done afterward, and it is giving me this ABCD firstly. Fine, so this is the okay. I'm so sorry. So yeah, that is okay. So this is the basically reason that's why it is just showing me the resultant as this and just let me quickly run it once more. And yeah, it is not showing me anything. Fine, it's absolutely fine. And I will just write here as 1, and I will just now again run that thing. Fine, so I hope now you just got the idea that basically how we can just run the program, and how we can just call the function, we can just run the function in the decorators, and basically how we just do the things in this decorator. And basically the main thing for this program was how we just declare a decorator. Fine, so at the rate and decorate1. Now let's do one more thing. Let's quickly move toward the definition for once, and now let's here see the definition, that what was it written. So a decorator in Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or a class. Fine. A reference to a function func or a class C is passed to a decorator, and the decorator returns a modified function or a class. Yeah, it does that, right? It has returned me the modified one. The modified functions or classes usually contains calls to the original function func or class C. So this was the same thing which our program did. So we have just done the same thing. We have just made a decorator, and it has even returned us the called the original function. Fine. So this was the example for the decorators which we have taken for now. Fine. So this was the example for the decorators. Now moving towards our second topic for today, and that second topic is encapsulation. Now I was just telling you about the encapsulation and polymorphism in our same file. So what I would do, I would just put a hash sign here. Okay, I would just write here as, firstly I will just tell you about encapsulation, and I will just remove that one I. Fine. Now what here I would just do, I would just like open the OneNote for now. I would just show you the definition for the encapsulation itself. Fine. So here just see the definition for the encapsulation. Let me take the polymorphism down. Fine. And just 1 second, just let me do one thing here. Just let me choose a specific one. Fine. Encapsulation is one of the fundamental concepts in object-oriented programming. It describes the idea of wrapping data and the methods that work on data within one unit. Fine. What it is encapsulation? So basically, firstly, it is a very fundamental concept in the object-oriented programming, that is OOPS, which we are just taking right now. And the second, what it is, it describes the idea of wrapping data and the methods that work on data within one unit. Within one unit basically means that within one function. Fine. Now, what I just want to mean from here, like what example, what do I basically want to say from here? Let's see this thing through an example. So I will just write a program here. Fine. So what I would just do, firstly I would just make a very simple class. Let's say the class is A. Now basically what is a class, what is the object, how we make a class, how we declare a class, how we make an object, for all these things I have already made a separate video. Fine. So you can just go over the playlist and just see that the class and objects. You can just have a look over that thing if you just want to see that basically what a class is, how a class is made, what are objects, how are objects, and all that things. Fine. Class, I've just made a class here and the name for the class is A. Now here coming inside my function, what I would just declare, I would just declare the init function. Fine. Now same thing about the init and self also, I've already made a separate video. So you can just go and have a look over that thing again. Fine. Def underscore underscore init underscore underscore and bracket itself. Fine. Self dot one. And even I will just write underscore underscore. Now basically what is this one? So one is one of the functions which I am going to make downside. So let's see that basically where I'm just going to make that thing. Here I would just make one more function. Okay. Now the name for my function would be first. Fine. First. First and in bracket self would be automatically passed because like here we have used the init function. That is why. Fine. I would just come down and here I would just write as okay print, and inside this print statement I would just give the print statement as first function. Fine. Now what else I have here? What I would be doing, I would just taking another thing, I would just writing that one function which I have just like declared above side, right? Def underscore underscore one, self would be automatically passed, and inside that print statement what I am just going to write here, I'm just going to, let's say I'm just going to write here as private function. Okay, like I don't know why this basically something in my keyboard or something, why this I is like coming 2 times. Okay, private function. Okay, okay, fine. So here what I have done, I've just simply made a class that is A. Now inside that class I've just made a function that is def. Now that def function is basically init function which I have just made, and here I have just used myself and just called one of my function, that is one which I have just made here right now. So inside this one function what I have passed a statement that is private function. Then I have even made one more second function that is first, and inside that function what I have just written, I have written print first function. Now after coming out of my class, I will just make an object here. Let's say the object which I would be making is if you, and let's say fun is one of my name of the objects which I had made for my class, that is A. Okay. If I would just write here as fun dot first, okay, first, and I would just run this things and let's see that what happens basically. Okay, so now see here what I am getting here. As soon as I make the object for my class and as soon as I just run this first one, even this first one only, I am getting this private function and the first function both in the output. Now I would just explain you this thing in a while. For now, just let me write one more thing. I would just write here fun dot underscore underscore one. Now here what I am doing, I'm just calling my one function also. See, okay. Now what happens here, basically have a look. 1 second, just 1 second. Okay. So firstly I will just explain you this thing and then I will just explain you that thing. Fine. See, as soon as I just run my function, that is first function using the object of my class, that is fun. I have just made that right now, and I have just run my function that is first. Now inside my first, what I was having stored as my first function. So this first function should be printed. No, but it is not doing the same thing. It is giving me the output as private function, and then it is giving me the first function, right? So this is the basic idea for the encapsulation. This is how we just write a function program for the encapsulation. Let me just try that for the fun. Just one second. Yeah, fun dot underscore underscore one and then the brackets. And just let me do one thing. Let me comment this thing. And now let's see that basically what happens here. Fine. Now here let's see that when I just call my function, that is 1. Okay, so in that what it is giving me, it is giving me the output as private function. Just have a look over here. Fine. Now I'm not getting this output because of this 1. Because I have called this one, I'm not getting this output. This is output I'm getting because I have made here the object for my function, that is a. Fine. This is the main reason only, that why I was just previously also I was just getting the private function first, and then I was just getting the output as first function. Fine. So this is the basic reason that we cannot just directly call this 1, because here I have just written this 1, and before this 1 also what I have done, I have just use the self dot underscore underscore 1. Fine. So this is the reason we cannot just call this 1 directly. Now this was about the encapsulation. Now just let me quickly comment this thing all above, and let's move towards the polymorphism. So I hope by the example you must have got the idea that basically what is this encapsulation. Let me quickly revise that one more. So encapsulation is one of the fundamental concepts in the object-oriented programming. It describes the idea of wrapping data and the methods that work on data with one unit. Fine. Moving towards the polymorphism. So yeah, just one second. Fine. So basically now what is the definition in polymorphism? In Python, polymorphism lets us define methods in child class that have the same name as the methods in the parent class. In inheritance, the child class inherits the method from the parent class. However, it is possible to modify a method in a child class that it has inherited from the parent class. Now, what it is showing here, what it is written a very long definition here, that in Python programming lets us define. Let's understand it line by line. So polymorphism lets us define methods in child class that have the same name as the methods in the parent class. Now, what it wants to say till here, this thing only, that polymorphism is a basically method in which we have a child class, and the name for that child class have the same names which are in methods and the parent class. Fine. We will just see the example right now, then you will just get to know that basically what is happening here. But for now, what you can just keep in mind that polymorphism lets us define methods in the child class that have the same name as the methods in parent class. Let's move towards the pie chart. Let's see a proper example this side. Fine. I would just write here an example, and then you will just get to know that basically what I'm just trying to say. Let's say here I just made a class, and a name for that class is mother. Fine. Okay. I just put a colon, and inside this mother class, what I am going to do here is that I'm just going to make one function. Let's say the name for that function is act. Fine. And inside that cell would be automatically passed because I have just made the class and the function here itself. Fine. So one of my class is mother. Fine. I have just made a class that is mother. Inside that class, what I have done, I have passed function, and that function is made a function. That function is act, and inside that function I have passed the self. Now what I have here, let's say I just write a print statement. I would just write here print as dancing. Fine. What I have done, right now I have just made one of the function that is method, and I have just mother. Inside that I have just made a function that is act. Self is automatically passed on that, and basically print dancing. Dancing is basically printed here. Now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to make one more function, right? Now that one more function is daughter. Okay. Now daughter is another function which I have just made here right now. So just let me do the D as capital for here, and I will just even put the colon here down. Now here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make the same function which I have made above, that is act, and inside that I would just write the print statement, and inside print I would just like write singing. Fine. So singing, okay, I is missed here. Fine. Now for now I have just made another class that was a daughter, and I had even passed one made one function inside the daughter class, that is act. Fine. So def act, inside bracket I have passed self and print the singing. Fine. So this is basically what we just meant from that side, that from the class. Okay, hold on. Let me show that thing. So polymorphism lets us define methods in child class that have the same name as the methods in the parent class. So what I am just making. Here I have just defined a method, right? That method is that. So daughter is my child class, my mother is my parent class. So I have defined the same methods in both the class. So that was this is the same thing which a definition was saying, that polymorphism lets us define methods in the child class that have the same name as the methods in the parent class. Fine. So this was about the definition of the polymorphism. Let me quickly go to PyCharm. Fine. Now let's quickly move downwards and let me take you to more down. Fine. Now here what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to make one final function, that is if final, if I single I final, and inside the bracket I would just pass here one parameter, that is activity. Fine. Activity is one of my parameters which I would just passing inside the function, and that function name is fine. Now after coming inside that I would just write here activity. Okay. Fine, activity dot act. Now basically what I have just done, this activity, the parameter which was activity, with that I have just associated this act were the functions which I have just declared inside my daughter class and even inside my mother class, right? These were the functions which we have just written that side. Fine. Now after coming out of my class and function, I will just declare one object. Let's say one is the object for my mother. Fine. So for mother I have just made an object that is 1. Now for the daughter I have made another object that is 2. Fine. Now I would just write here as final and in bracket 1, and here I would just write here as final and in bracket 2. And now let's quickly run that thing. Okay, so here I just got dancing and singing because firstly I have run the final one, and the one was having the object for mother. One is the object for mother. So in mother what we were having? In mother we were, just let me show you here. In mother we were having the activity as the dancing. So dancing is printed as the output to me very first. And then in the daughter class we were having the activity as singing. And even here in the print statement also I have just written that final 2. Right, so I have written is 2 afterwards. That is why it is showing me singing afterwards. Now quickly exchange these things. I would just write 1 afterwards, and even I would just write this 2 first. Okay. So here I have just written the 2 first and then 1 afterwards. Now I will just quickly run that thing. See, now the output has changed. Right. Now firstly it is singing, and then secondly it is dancing. So the daughter class we have the singing, and for the mother we have dancing, because the daughter class was having the object as 2 and I have written that object 2 in the first time. Okay. And the mother class was having the object as 1. I have written this 1 in the afterwards of this 2. That is why it is resulting in the singing and dancing, the outputs like this. Fine. So this was about the polymorphism. Now let's once more go towards the definition. Fine. So above lines were done. So basically here it is written in inheritance, the child class inherits the method from the parent class. That is the same thing which we are doing right now. However, it is possible to modify a method in a child class that it has inherited from the parent class. So we are just even doing the same thing, right? We have taken the same function name for the child class and even for the parent class. The parent class was mother, right? The child class was daughter. So we have taken the same function name, that is act and add. After that, when we had just made the objects for both of these classes and just run the program, so we just got a resulted and the desired output. Fine. So this was the example for the polymorphism. So till now we have completed the 3 topics, that are decorators, encapsulation and polymorphism. Now moving towards the setter methods. Fine. Now setter and getter, these 2 are the methods which are basically you can say just opposite to each other, or you can just say Fine, you can just say that these are a little bit similar to each other. Now, getter and setter methods. Fine. So let's quickly go to the OneNote and read the definitions, and then we'll just see that what are basically these using the examples. Fine. Okay. Firstly, read this down things. Whatever I have just written this downside, just read this for a while. For each instance variable, a getter method returns its value, while a setter method sets or updates its value. Given this, getter and setter are also known as accessor and mutator. So firstly, understand this thing that the second name for getters and setters are accessor and mutators. So getter methods are also called as accessor methods and setter methods are also called as mutator methods. So this is the first thing which you should remember while from this thing. Let me just highlight that thing for a while and I will just take fine. Let me just choose this highlighter. Fine. So here from this, the getters and setters, fine. Getters and setters are also known as accessor and mutators, fine. Now come upwards. A method defined within a class can either be an accessor or a mutator, as I told, getter or setter. The second name is for getter and setter. An accessor method returns the information about the object but do not change the state or the object, fine. Now what was this accessor methods, fine. Now, as I just told that accessor and mutator are the two things. So, accessor methods is the getter methods, fine. So, the getter methods returns the information about the object but do not change the state or the object. So, basically what they do, they only tells us and returns the information about the object but they cannot change the state or the object basically, right? But what mutator methods or the mutator methods or the setter methods do, so mutator method also called an update method. So we have another name also, that is update method, can change the state of the object. So what is this mutator methods used for? They can change the state of the object and the accessor methods cannot do that. So in terms of getters and setters, so getter method returns the information about the object but do not change the state or object, and the setter methods can change the state of the object. So let me just quickly take the font and let's see that basically I just write here something or like that. So let me just take this and I would just take this typo, fine. So here I would just even define the another name. So accessor is also called as, and yeah, just let me write here, fine. So I would just put a slash here and even I would just write accessor methods are also called as getters, fine. So I would just write G-E-T-E-R. So you can just do not get confused about this. So an accessor slash getter method, fine. So getter, and here mutator is also called as the setter. So I would just put even a slash here the side. Okay, and I would just okay, 1 second, fine. So this is called as setters, fine. So this is the even the second names for all of these. A mutator setter methods can change the state of the object, and basically this getter method return the information about the object but do not change the state. So for each instance variable, a getter method returns its value while a setter method sets or updates its value. So now by now till now you have just got the idea that what this setter and getter methods do. Now let's quickly move towards the pie chart and see the examples for both of these things. Fine. So let's write the program. Firstly, what I would just do, I would just make it for the getter. So I would just put a comment here. I would just write here getter method. Fine. Just go down. Now here I would just define a class first of all. I would just define a class and let's say the name for the class is flower. Fine. The flower is one of the class which I have just defined right now. Now what next I have? Here inside this I would just make a init function, fine. Init and this self is automatically passed inside that init. What else I have? I would just write here self dot type, as we have just made the class for a flower. The name for the name for our class is flower, right? So I would just take that which type of flower it is, fine. So I would just write a self dot type and here I would just type specify particular type. And let's say that is sunflower, fine. So I have just specified a particular flower type for this class, that is flower, and that type is sunflower. Now what I have just done right now, I have just made a class that is flower, fine. I have just even taken one function, that is init function, define that function, fine. After coming inside that function, I have taken the help of self and I have just write a self dot type, and type basically define that what type of flower I have, and that is sunflower. So sunflower is the string which I have just passed in the self dot type parameter. Now what I would do, I would just even make one more function. Fine. So here I would just declare the function, and yeah, I would just declare a function. Now the name for my function would be get name, as we are just gonna use that getter method. That is why I just written here as get name, and the self is automatically passed, as you can just see. Here I would just return self dot type. Now self dot type was one of the parameters, this one of the variables which I have just declared in the init function, right? So I have just returned that same thing, return self dot type. Coming out of my class, what I would just do, I would just make the object here. I would just write f is equal to flower. Flower is the f is the object for my class, that is flower, which I have just made right now. F is equal to flower. Now what next I have here, I would just take a variable, that is a. Now here what I'm just going to use, I'm going to use the object of my class, that is f, and I'm just going to use my function which I have just made, that is get name, and I would just print here as print here as a. Fine. And now when I just run this program, so see here I just got the output, that is sunflower. So this is basically how we just write a program for the getter methods. So getter method for they like what they do, they simply return us the information, right? They do not update or they do not change anything. They simply return us the information whatever they are having. So here what I just did, let me give a recap that I've just made a class, that is flower. Now after that class, inside that class, I've just declared a function that was init. Now inside that init function, I have just written self.type, and the type for my flower was sunflower. Coming out of my init function, but remaining inside my class, I have made another function. Now the function for my the name for that function is get underscore name. So here I just use my getter method. Fine. Now I just put the self. Now self was automatically there. So I just returned self.type. Now self.type was having the string. Is that the string which I have just stored in the form of a flower name, and that was sunflower, right? After coming out of my class and my functions, I have just taken and made a object for my class, that is f. My class was flower, so I just stored f as my object and declared it as the f is equal to flower. Coming to the next line. Excuse me, I have just taken another variable, that is a. Now I have written a is equal to f dot get underscore name. Now get underscore name was that function which we have just made for the getter method, and I have just simply printed a. So this resulted me the output as the sunflower. Now let's quickly move toward the OneNote one more time. Have a look at what I have written that time. An accessor/getter method returns the information about the object but do not change the state or the object, right? So basically what it is giving, it is giving us the information about the object but do not change the state or the object, right? So this was a small example for the getter method. Now let me just comment this thing and let's move towards the setter method, the last topic for today. So I would just here comment, and I would just write here as setter methods. Fine. Let's quickly write an example for this thing right now. So for that, what I would just make, another class, and I would just close this output window for a while. Fine. My class would be same which I have just taken that time, that was flower. Fine, I've just put the colon, but I'm not gonna copy even from my code also. I'm just going to write the whole thing once more time. So def underscore init. This is the init function which I have just made. Now here I will just write self.type, and I will just initialize the type of a flower. Let's say that was sunflower. We'll just take the same example. Fine. So this was just same thing which we have taken above, and I've just written that. What else I have? I would just make another function. Now my function name would be a little bit different, and that would be set underscore name. That basically means that here what I am going to do, I'm just going to what I have just taken right now. Just let me backspace. Fine. One second. Just let me write the correct name. Okay. So basically now set underscore name, this is our setter method, right? So previously in the example, what we have used in the place of the set, we have used get. That was being treated as the getter method. But here I have written as set, so this is being treated as the setter method. So def set underscore name, and in bracket it is self. I will just write yourself dot type. And let's say here I'm just going to give one more new name, that is Lily. Okay, let's say Lily is one of the other flowers which I have just like taken here. Fine. So def set underscore name, set underscore name is my setter method and the name for my function, and I have just like returned self dot type is equal to Lily. Now what I would just do after coming out of my function, fine, after coming out of my function here, I would just like write f is equal to flower. I would just make the object for my class. I would just print. Okay, fine. One second. Yeah, I should be removed from this side and it should be added. Fine. Now listen to my words very carefully. I would just write here print f dot type. Fine, f dot type. This is done. Now I would just put a hashtag here and I will just write something here. This is like before using. Now what before using? Before using my set method. Fine. Before using my set method, I am just printing this f dot type. Now here what I am just going to use, I am just going to use my set method, setter method which we have just taken right now. I would just write f dot set underscore name. I have just called my function this side, right? Now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to write print, and again I'm just going to write print dot type. And here I will just put a hashtag and I will like write a comment here, and this would be after using. So after and then using. Now when I would just run my program, now see basically what will happen. See, firstly what I was getting sunflower. So that sunflower I just got from this line, that is print f dot type before using, that is line number 20 according to me. And here why I just got that, because here inside my init function I have written self dot type is equal to sunflower. What else I have done? Now here I have called my set name function, So this is basically the function setter method which I have used. So here what I have done, I have just changed the name. Now I have given the name of that type as a Lily. Basically before what I was just doing, I was just giving the name as sunflower. After that I have used my setter method, that is set underscore name, and I have simply given the new name as a Lily flower. And after calling of that, I just wrote print f dot type. So it showed me that after using this setter method, the output for you is Lily, right? So this is the example for the set setter method which we have taken. Now let's do one more thing here. Let's take one more example here. Let's say what I would just write here one more time. Let's say the one more like example here. Fine. Class flower. Now inside this what I would just doing, I'm not going to make that init function and all that things. I would just write here def set underscore name. Now set underscore name is the function which I have just taken right now. Fine. And inside that is self is passed. Now with the self, what I am going to do here is that I'm going to pass one more parameter. So right now what I'm just telling you a short form for writing the set, for using the setter method. So I will just comment this thing. Fine. So here that is class is flower and def set underscore name self comma m. Now here what I am going to use here is that I'm just going to use self dot type. Okay, self dot type is equal to m. Now m was the parameter which I have like passed in my set underscore name function, right? So I just wrote that self dot type is equal to m. Coming out of my class, I would just make one object for my class. F is equal to flower and then the bracket. Fine. So object for my flower class is f. I would just write here f dot set underscore name, and inside the brackets what I'm just going to write, Lily. So this is basically one more method how you can just like use the setter methods. Fine. So f dot set underscore name Lily, and here I would just write print, and inside this print I would just write print f dot type. And this is basically after using. But this is the one more method how you can just use your setter method. So I will just run the program and here we'll just get the output, that is Lily. Fine. So this is the basically way how we can just use the getter and setter methods in our Python programming. This was the way. So I'll just let me quickly give a recap for the getter and setter method. So basically for the getter method, what we have done, we have made a class. The name for that class was flower. I have passed a function. That function was init. Fine. Then inside that function I have written self.type, and that was sunflower. The type for the flower I have given as sunflower. Then I have made another function that was get underscore name, and I have written self.type. Return that. And after coming out of my class, I have just made the object and called my getName function, and it just simply printed me the output. And in the stateName, what I have done, I had simply made one changement only. I have written here set underscore name. So use my setter method, and here inside that I have set a new name for my type whichever I was having. So I have just written self.type is equal to Lily. Fine. And here I just wrote my object for the class. I just printed f.type before using my set name, and I have just printed that f.type after using my set name. So I just got the desired output. The firstly I was just getting sunflower, right? And afterwards I was just getting Lily, right? So this was all about decorators, encapsulation, polymorphism, setter and getter method. So we have discussed 5 topics right now. Let me just quickly give you one more recap about the names of the topic that were decorators, encapsulation, polymorphism, setter and getter methods. Topics which we have not covered in the previous video. So topics for today are generators, map, reduce and filter functions, and at last we will be discussing about method overloading and overriding. So these are the topics for today, and today what we'll be doing, we're just completing the whole basics of Python playlist. Like all the topics which I have covered in my Hindi videos, today all of that would be covered in the English videos also, right? So this was the last video for this English. Fine. So let me quickly tell you that we are just going to discuss about the topics, and let me quickly revise the topics. So these are generators, map, reduce, filter functions, and then followed by method overloading and overriding. So we will be following the same procedure. Firstly, we will be just going to the OneNote, just having the definition, seeing the definitions that basically what are these terms, and then we will again come back to this pie chart and have a look over the practicals for the things, right? So let's begin the things for now. Okay, so this is my OneNote, and let's start for the Python generators. Fine. Okay, so now here it is written that Python generators are a simple way of creating iterators. It is fairly simple to create a generator in Python. It is as easy as defining a normal function, but with a yield statement instead of a return statement. Okay. Now, what does it mean? Basically, whenever we just define a function, right? So whenever we just define a normal function, what we do in the let's say we want to return something, right? Let's say I just want to return a cross a, or I want to return the addition of two numbers, okay, addition of those two variables. So what we do, we just write def, we just make that function, right? We just write def, our function name, and then we simply what we do, we just simply pass the parameters into that. Fine. Coming inside my function, I just write return a plus b. So there I just use the statement that is written. But in generators, what we do, we just make a function, but instead of that return statement, we use the statement yield, Y-I-E-L-D. So that this is the statement basically which we use while writing the generators, while making the generators. So basically, what are these generators used for? So as in the first I mentioned that Python generators are a simple way of creating iterators. Now, what is this iterators? Iterators means if you just want to print something turn by turn, then that is called iteration. Okay. Let's say you just want to print some numbers. Let's say you have a number limit and you want to print that numbers from this particular point to this point. Fine. So that is called iterators. So in that case, what we use, basically use the for loop. We do the iteration. Okay. We use for loop, or let's say we just use while loop. Fine. So generators are a simple way for creating that iterators. It is fairly simple to create a generator in Python. It is as easy as defining a normal function, but with a yield statement instead of a return statement. Fine. Now, last word I have just written here, if a function, okay, if a function contains at least one yield statement, okay, at least, now I just mentioned here the term that is written at least. If a function contains at least one yield statement, it may contain other yield statement or return statement, that is optional. So just read that if a function contains at least one yield statement, it becomes a generator function. Now here what is this written? But basically, if you are just making any function, let's say just find a function, and in that function at least you made one yield statement, so that would be called as a generator function. Now that would not be called as a normal function. Fine. That would be called as a generator function. Now both yield and return will return some value from a function. So the basically work for the yield and return is same, that basically they will return some value for a function. But we just usually make generators because these are the simple way for creating iterators. Right? So I hope you just got the idea that basically what are the generators used for, and basically why we just use a generator function instead of that normal function. Fine. And we just use the yield statement instead of that return. So in generator function, we use the real yield statement, and in the normal functions, we use the return statement, fine? So this is the idea. Now let's quickly move towards the PyCharm and have some practical for this thing, right? So here I am in PyCharm and already made the files, okay? So by the time you can just like make one Python file, right? Let's start the thing. So firstly, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write and make a function here, right? As we just mentioned that it is generator is a function, right? As I just mentioned, the generator function thing. So I'm just gonna make one function. So I would just write dev, and here in the bracket I would just pass some parameters. Before passing some parameters, I would just give the name. So the name for my function is 1. Let's say 1, okay? And in the bracket, I'm just going to pass a comma b. So these are the arguments, or the you can say parameters, which I have just passed in my function. Now, as we mentioned in that side, that basically what we do, we write yield, okay? Instead of the return statement, we write yield. So I would just write here as yield, okay? One I is like written here, yield a, okay? So if I just want to return a, in place of that return, I would just write yield. And I would just again do the same thing, yield b. So now what it will basically do, what function it will do, basically it will return me the values for a and b, okay? The function of that yield is also same, that it returns some values, fine? Now next what I would just do, I would just take two values, p comma q, fine? P comma q, let's say two variables I have just taken, and I just call my function. And here I just pass 2 comma 4, fine? And here what I would just write, I would just write print p, and here I would just write as, okay, single I, and print q, fine? So this was the shortest program which we have just written right now. And yeah, just have a look here what I just got as the output. I just got the output as 2 and 4, fine? So this is the idea, basically this is how we make a generator function. Now here I haven't make a normal function, I have made a generator function as mentioned in definition, that whenever you use at least one yield, at least single yield in your program, then that program turns to be your generator function. So here what I have done, I have used at least one yield statement, right? So that is why my program has been turned into my generator function, and instead of that return, I have written yield. So that is why this is one of my generator functions, fine? So this idea, I hope this must be clear to that to you, that basically what is the generator function and how we can just make a simple program and write a program for the generator functions, fine? Now let's move forward. Now let's say here I just make a variable, let's say, okay, I just wrote a variable, fine? And now here what I'm just gonna give, I'm just going to pass some values, pass 2 comma 4, let's say, okay? So here what I have done, I have made another variable, that is final, is equal to, now what is this one? Was my name of the function. Let's go above and check out. Okay, so this is the name of my function, right? So I hope this is zoom in, right? So it should be visible to you, fine? So 2 and 4, the same values which I have passed. And now here what I would just write, I would just write as print, and here I would just write as final and single I, final, fine? Now let's quickly run that once more, fine? Okay, so basically what it is giving me, it is giving me generator object at generator object 1 at the something it is giving me. So just let's see that basically what is happening here. Let me just comment this thing for a while, and let's see now that basically are we just getting any answer from this final is equal to 1 2 comma 4 print final or not, or basically it is only showing me that this is a generator function. So basically now what it is giving me, it is giving me that generator object 1 at this position. So basically this is the positional index, you can just say. Now what it is giving me, why it is giving me the same thing, because here what we have done, here I have to pass two values a and b, right? And I have done yield a and yield b, but here I haven't taken two parameters. I have just commented that thing. I have simply taken a single variable and I just simply printed that. That is why I'm just getting that output. Okay, now let's comment this thing once more. Okay, not now. Now here let's say if I just want to check that what is the type for this print, and I would just write here as type, and here I would just write as final. I want to check that what is the basically type for this final, okay, whatever we have written, what is its type. Now I will just run this one. See, basically what it is saying me, that it is of generator class. Previously it was telling me generator object, and now it is saying me that the class is generator, fine? So I hope you just got the idea that here we have, and even I have proved also that we have made a generator function here in this example because I have used this yield statement, and wherever I'm going to use this yield statement, so it is going to be our generator function only. Fine. So this is the idea. Now what else we can do here? What else like function we can just perform here? Now let's say I just want to convert this into list. Now I just want to do some typecasting or things like that. Okay, I would just write here list one. Okay, list one. Let's say this is one of my variables which I have just made right now. And what I would do, I would just write here as list. I'm just typecasting. Now, what does this typecasting means? And how many types of typecasting we can do, and all these things. For this, I have already made one of my videos. You can just go and have a look over that video and just see that basically what does this typecasting means. And here I'm performing the explicit type conversion. Okay. You can just go and have a proper look over that video so that you can just get a better idea of whatever I'm doing here, right? So list one is equal to list, and in the bracket I'm just going to write as final. So final is my variable which I just want to convert into list. Fine. Now what I'm just going to do here, I'm just going to print my list one. Okay. Print my list one. Fine. And even I just want to keep the type also. That what is the basically type for this list one. So I will just write here as type, and so basically, what is the data type for this list one, right? I just want to keep that thing also. Okay, just hold on for a second. Let me, yeah, I cannot comment that thing. So I can just comment this thing right now. This one. Okay, let's not do that thing. Fine. Let's run that like this only. Fine. So from above, I was just getting these two outputs. Now, let's have a look that from this and this what I'm getting. So here what I'm getting as the output, and my like variables have been converted into list. The values which I was getting, they have been converted into list, right? 2, 4. And here what it is now showing me, it is showing me that like class which you are having, that is of the list data type. Fine. So here what I have just done, I have just done the typecasting and just printed that thing. Fine. So I hope you just got the whole idea that basically how does this yield function works. Okay, so this was a short example for this yield function. Now this is not enough for now. We are just going to see some more functions on this generator function. Okay, move towards the next example. Here I will just make the same function, def1. Okay, now here what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass the same values which are a comma b. Fine. I would just like go here, I would just write yield, okay, yield, okay, yield a, and here even I would just write as, okay, let me just do enter. Fine. And here I would just write as yield b. Fine. So a and b. Now what else I'm going to do here, I'm just again going to make that final is equal to 1, and here I will just pass as 2, 4. Fine. Now here what I am going to do here is that I'm just going to print that final, let's say. Now this was the same thing which we have done right now, right? We have just seen all these things, so I'm not going to run that. Now if I just want to check the type, that will be also generated. Now I'm not going to write that thing also here. Fine. Now what next, like new thing I have here? Here we have one function that is next. Print next, and in bracket I'm just going to write the final. Now let's run this for a while. Let's run this. See, as soon as I wrote next, what I just got here, I just got here as 2. Now see one more thing here. I'm just going to write this thing once more. I would just write here print. Again I would just write next, and again I would write as here final. Okay, final. And now when I would just run this thing once more. See, now what I just got 2 and 4. So basically what is this next function used for? If you just want to get your values turn by turn, let's say you have entered here 2 values, that is 2 and 4, right? So if you just want to get your values one by one in the sense that firstly you want only your first value should be displayed, right? And then secondly you want your second value should be displayed. Then let's say you have here many values, then you want your third value to be displayed. So this is the procedure, this is the use of the next function, that basically if you're having a particular value and you want to just display that value once, and then you want to display the second value, then you want to display the third value, you don't want to display the whole all the values in one go. So in that case we basically use the next function. Fine. I hope you got the idea. As soon as you run the program, you must have got the idea basically what does this next function do. Fine. So this was one more example. Now moving towards the last example for this yield function. Now for this generator function. Now let's see the last example for this generator function. Fine. Now again I'm just going to make one function. Now I will just change the name of the function, that is 2. Okay, I will just write here a comma b. Now here inside this I will just apply some condition, fine. While a is less than equal to b. Here I have just applied one condition, that while a is less than equal to b. Now here what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to write here as yield. Now you write, like we know why I have written yield, because I just want to make it my generated function, fine, yield a. And here what I would do, I would just do the iteration, that is a is equal to a plus 1, fine. Now what I would do, I would just come out of my function and I would just make a variable here, let's say final. I would just write here as 2. I will pass the values, okay. Now I would just print print, and here I would just write as final. So you would know that what will be the output. So let me just quickly run that thing. Fine. So here we just got that generated object to our this position. Now we will follow the same procedure. If I just want to display these things one by one, so what I am going to use, firstly I would just write here as print. I would write here as next, and in the bracket I would write my term, that is final, and let's run that for now. Fine. So here you can see that my first value has been generated. Now just see the values which I have given 2 comma 5. So even I have given 2 comma 5, even I have just given a condition that prints me the values till at that point, till the point a is less than equal to b. Now if I'm just going to write this print once more, I would just write here as print next and then final. Now what I am going to get, now don't be in that mistake that you're going to get 5 as the output. No. Why? Because here we have applied the condition, that is while loop. Here I have given the condition a less than equal to b. It got inside this while loop yield a, fine. It printed me a. And then a is equal to a plus 1. So here what is happening? Here the value of a has been incremented also. Is been incrementing. Incrementing means, so here it was the value of a was 2. Now the value for a has become 3, and now when I'm just going to run my program, now see here what I just got 2 3. So this procedure will carry on till 4, fine. So sorry, till 5, because here we have the condition that while a is less than equal to b. So I would just copy this single line and I will just paste it for 2 more times, okay. Now I would just run this, fine. Okay, so see here what I got 2, 3, 4 and 5, right? So this was the proper output which I just got. And now let's see if I just print this next once more. My condition is false this side, right? For this line number 32, my condition would be so false, because we have given the value for a as 2 and the value for b as b, and we were b as 5. And we were having the condition that a is less than equal to b. Yeah, that is going to be false. But what are we going to get here? Let's see that thing. Now, here see that firstly I just got the output. 2, 3, 4 and 5. This is a desired output. Now what it is saying? It is saying stop iteration. Stop iteration means my iteration has been stopped here. So this line, last line which you have written, that is not valid, because only the condition which you have given is while a less than equal to b, and the values were 2 and 5. So I would be printing the values only till 5. If you have written next, then I would just give you the error that stop iteration. Now you need not to do the iteration because your condition is now being false, fine. And after your while condition, nothing would be printed, fine. So this was the idea about using the generators, right? So I hope you just got the idea that basically what are generators and basically how we just use the generators, fine. So let's do one thing, just quickly go to that OneNote once more and read out the definitions, whatever we have written, right? So the first thing was Python generators are simple way of creating iterators, right? So you have seen that thing here, right? We have just done 3 examples. In that we have just seen the things. Second, it is fairly simple to create a generator in Python. It is as easy as defining a normal function but with a yield statement instead of a return statement. So basically what it is saying, it is fairly simple to create a generator in Python. Yeah, that's easy, right? As we just normally declared one of the function, and inside that function simply instead of the yield we just use the return. Okay, so that was as simple as like it is written here. But only the case was that instead of that return statement we need to use the yield. Now, third thing, if a function contains at least one yield statement, it becomes a generator function. Fine. Both yield and return will return some value from a function. This was about the generators. Now let's move towards the PyCharm IDE for once more. And here let's move towards the second topic for today. And that are map, reduce and filter functions. Now we are going to see that basically what okay, before map, reduce and filter, let's see this method overloading and method overriding. Fine, let's solve these things and then we'll move towards the map, reduce and filter function. So let me just take it upwards and let me just close this thing for a while. Fine. So here I have already written some definitions for the overloading and overriding itself. Let's quickly read that. What are these? So overloading is the ability of a function or an operator to behave in different ways based on the parameters that are passed to the function or the operands that the operators act on. And what is this overriding? So the method of the child class overrides the method of the parent class when called by an object of the child class. This is called method overriding. Now the definitions looks a little bit of typical, a little bit of lengthy and things like that, right? Now I would be explaining you each and every line, but before that let's quickly see one example for the method overloading. Fine. Now what it says basically, method overloading is the ability of a function or an operator to behave in different ways. Okay. Now what is this like overloading? It is the ability of a particular function. Let's say we have a particular function. Now it is the ability of that function or you can say just an operator also to behave in different ways based on the parameters that are passed to the function or the operands that the operators acts on. Fine. Let's see an example for this. Okay. Let's go and see one example and then you will just clear more. Fine. So as this is the topic for my classes, so even I will just make one class and I will just name my class as A. Now here what we are just going to, let's say I just made a function here. Okay. Let's say I made a function def add. Okay, self is automatically passed because I have made my class here. Fine. Now here let's say I just pass some values. My value A is equal to none. Let's see here I just pass the value for A. I would do the same thing for B itself. And even we have one last variable that is C also. Fine. So A, B and C is equal to none. Fine. This is done. Now let's say here I want to give some conditions inside my this function. Okay. Let's say if let's say I'm just writing a program. Let's say if not A not equal to none. Okay. A not equal to none and B not equal to none and C not equal to none. C not equal to none. Fine. Let's say I just gave a condition here, very simple condition. Let's say A not equal to none and B not equal to none and C not equal to none. That means A, B and C, both of like all the three are having some values stored in them, right? Then do what here? Then take a variable that is B and add all the three values. Okay. Fine. So here now what I have just written, let's say I just made a function, right? The function was like add. Okay. Inside that I have passed some A, B and C, three parameters, and I have done their values as none. None means that right now they are not having any of the values stored in them. Fine. Because we will be giving the values at the time of the function calling. Fine. This is only the function declaration. So after inside that function what I have done, I have just given one condition. Okay. And my condition is if the value for A is not equal to none, that is the variable which I have just taken here, that is A, it is storing some value. Let's say we have just given some value to that A and we have given and B is not equal to none, that is we have given some value to B also, and C is not equal to none, that is we have given some value to C also. Then take a variable that is B and add all of these three, that is A, B and C, add all of three. Fine. This is the first condition which I have just written. Here I would just put one elif. Fine. After using that elif, I would just apply one more condition. If A not equal to none and B, a small b, B not equal to none. And whatever I have just made in some mistake this side. Fine. If A not equal to none and B not equal to none, then what do? Then take the same variable and now what to do? Add only A and B. Fine, add only A and B. Previously what we were giving, if all the three values are given into this function, then add all of these three values. Now, next thing, that if only two values are given, then add only those two values. Fine. And my third condition, third and the last condition. Okay, this is like we cannot add only one number, right? If we must have two or three numbers for adding. We cannot add a simple number. So if my these of two conditions do not satisfy, then print me a statement that give at least two numbers. Okay, just let me go here. Yeah, give at least two numbers for addition. Okay, for addition. So now here what I'm just saying that give me at least two numbers for addition. I cannot add one number for it, right? Like I cannot add one number, right? So give me at least two numbers for addition. And I don't know, basically just hold on. Fine. And go above. Fine. So I have just made my class, and now after coming out of my class, here what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to call my, firstly I'm just going to make the object of my class. So let's say I made that obj. Fine. My class name was A. Print, and here firstly I would just write my object, that is obj. Now I put a dot, I would just write my function name. Let's say firstly I would just give two values. Let's say I just give the value 3, 4, okay, and I would just run my program. Now I would just get, see, okay, here what I'm just getting none. Why I am getting this thing none? Let's see. Okay. Fine, so let's do one thing. Let's remove these none, none, and none, all of these three from here, and I will just remove this thing for right. Now let's quickly run that once more. Okay, add missing one required positional argument. See, have I done something like wrong here? I don't know, like self comma A comma B comma C. Fine, if A not equal to none and B not equal to none and C not equal to none. Okay, then P is equal to A plus B plus C. Fine, if A not equal to none and B not equal to none. So P is equal to A plus B. Fine, that's also fine. Else print me this thing. Then what mistake have I made here? Obj is equal to A, and yeah, print obj dot add in brackets 3, 4. Let's say I just wrote here one value right now. Okay, I just gave one value. Yeah. Okay, just 1 second. Just like quickly pass. Let me pass none here. Like once more. Okay, none. Here also none, and here also none. Fine. Okay. Obj dot R2 and now let's quickly run that thing once more. Okay, so basically firstly it is giving me give at least two numbers for addition. Okay, now that's now like this function is running absolutely fine. So basically it is saying me that give at least two numbers for addition. Fine. Now what else we should do? Let me just change some values. Let me here give two values. Let's say I just give three values, 3, 4, 5. And now let's say I just want to run this. Okay, it's showing me none. I don't know why. Basically it is doing that thing, and even let's check that. Let me just print your P. Okay, print P. And here also let me just print and P. Fine, and I'll just run this for once more. Okay, so basically now what it is giving me, it is giving me the answer that is 12. Fine. See now what is the addition for 5, 4 and 3? So addition for all these three is 9 plus 3, that is 12. So it is giving me even the 12 as the value. Now why it is giving me none? Let's see that quickly also. So I don't know, like okay. Let's try some more things and then we'll just see that basically why it is doing. So at last we'll just see this thing, okay? Let's take this thing till the last, right? So here I have just given three values and it showed me the addition. Now let's say I just remove one more value and I will just now again run that. Now see, what it is giving me? It is giving me the value as 7. That is also fine. Let's say I just gave one only argument here. Now if I just run that once more, so it will give at least two numbers for addition, right? So my program is running like absolutely fine. Now why did I just show you this program right here and why did I just wrote that thing? Because I want to prove the method overloading. Right now, you have written a simple program for the method overloading. This is basically how the method overloading works, fine. This is how, as I told, this is how basically the method overloading works. Fine, and let me just go above and show you the definition for once more. So, overloading is the ability of a function or an operator to behave in different ways, right? What was my function doing? My function was having different conditions, and it was behaving in different ways, right? Based on the parameters that are passed to the function. So, when I just passed two parameters, it added to those two parameters. When I passed three parameters, it added those three parameters. When I did not pass any parameter, then what it did, it simply did not added any, and it resulted me the output that give at least two numbers for each, right? So this is basically what is called as method overloading. Ability of a function or an operator to behave in different ways based on the parameters that are passed to the function or the operands that the operator acts on. Fine. So this is what's called as method overloading. Fine. Right now we have just seen an example for method overloading. So now just let me quickly comment the things right here, and we'll just see that one more example for the method overriding. Fine. So let's see the definition for this method overriding once. So basically now what does this method overriding say? The method of the child class overrides the method of the parent class when called by an object of the child class. This is called method overloading. Now what just like meant here, what do I just said? So the method of the child class. We have child class and parent class, right, in the classes. Now, if you just want to know that basically what are classes and what is the child class, what is the parent class, so you can just go and look at my previous videos in which I have explained about the classes and objects, fine. So you can just go and have a look. There you will just get all the insights about the child class, parent class, classes, objects and all that things, fine. Now, let's take the things here right now. The method of the child class overrides the method of the parent class. So the child class, the like method which we have introduced, which we have written in the child class, that is being override by the method of the parent class when called by an object. Fine. Whenever we just called a function, okay, a class using our object. So whatever the method we have written in child class, that overrides the method whatever you have written in the parent class, and this procedure is only called as method overriding. Let's see an example and then you will just get a clearer idea about this thing, right? Let's say here I just made a function, okay, and the name for my function is sub. So basically what my function would do, firstly I'm just making a class, fine. Now inside this I would just make a function, I would just write here as out. Now what my subclass will do, my subclass will do the subtraction for two numbers, fine, you do subtract two numbers. Here I would just write as print, and here I would just write as subtract. Okay, TRAC subtraction is fine, and this colon here comma, and here I will just write as A minus B. Okay, subtraction is A minus B. Fine. Sorry, yeah, we have taken A minus B. That's right. Now what else I would do? I would just make one more class, and now this class would be div. So basically this class would what do? This class will do the division. Now I would keep the name of the method same, right, as I just mentioned above, the methods, right? So method is my function only, right? I would again pass the same parameters a comma b, and here I would just apply that print statement print, and here I would just write subtraction is okay, tion, that was okay. And I would just, not the subtraction, I just need to write here as division, fine, division. I don't know like why this I is coming double times right here, fine. So division is, I would just put this colon, and here I would put a comma a by b, right? So this is a division for both of these numbers. So here what I have just done right now, I've just made two classes, sub and division, fine. Inside my subclass, I have taken a function that is out, and basically what it is doing, it is subtracting the two numbers. And in my division class also, I have taken the same function that is out, and even it is also doing the division of two numbers, fine. Now I would just come out and make the function like object for my child class, as we mentioned above, that object for the child class. So the object for my child class, what is my child class? My child class is div and my parent class is sub. Okay. Now I have just made the object. Now here I would just write d dot out, and in the bracket I would just write, let's say 15 comma 5 are the values which I have just given. If I would just run my program now, just see here that what I just got it. I just got the division is 3.0. Fine, I just got the division, and that division is 3.0. And this is the same thing, like this is the correct thing which my div class was doing. My div class was having a function in it, and that function was basically performing the division for two numbers, right? And this is the like correct output which I got. Now, what was the definition? Now just pay attention to what the definition. The method of a child class overrides the method of the parent class when called by an object of the child class. Here what is happening? The method for my parent class was out. The method for my child class was also out. So whenever I have called my class using my object of, like whenever I have called my function using the object of my child class, so basically what it is doing is it is overriding the method of my parent class, that is it is overriding this out function, and instead of this it is overriding that, right? My child class, my div class is overriding the method of this subclass, and basically in the output, that is why I was getting the output in the division, because my parent class, that is my subclass, that has been overridden. Fine. So this is the whole idea about the method overloading and overriding, that basically these two concepts are a little bit similar to each other. Let's quickly have one more time the definition for both of these. So the overloading is the ability of a function or an operator to behave in different ways based on the parameters that are passed to the function or the operands the operators act on. Fine. So this thing I have just now proved with a very simple example. Moving towards the method overriding. So the method for the child class overrides the method of the parent class when called by an object of the child class. This is called as method overriding, right? So I hope you just got the whole idea about the method overloading and overriding. Now let's move towards the map, reduce and filter functions for today. Fine. Now, what are basically these three functions and what are these three used for? Let's go to OneNote and have a look over the definition and use for these functions. Fine. So here it is written, map, filter and reduce are paradigms of functional programming. Fine, that is okay. They allow the programmer, that is you, to write simpler, shorter code without necessarily needing to bother about loops and branching. Now this is the main function, this is the main use, that basically why we just use the map, filter and reduce function. So basically what they do, they allow the programmer, that is you, to write simpler, shorter codes, fine, without needing to bother about loops and branching. Essentially, these three functions allow you to apply a function across a number of iterables in one fell swoop. Okay, map and filter come built in with Python and require no importing. Reduce, however, needs to be imported as it resides in the functools module. Right. So basically, from here, what we can just conclude from this. Okay, just let me close this thing. And let me find, so I just like, okay, so basically what we can just conclude from here, that map, filter and reduce, these three are the functions which are basically used to write the simpler and the shorter codes. Fine, let's quickly see some examples for all of these three. So let me go to the PyCharm and yeah. So firstly we'll be just seeing about the map. So I would just put some hash, even I would just put some dash and I would just write here as map. Okay. And even I will just again put some hash. Fine. Let's write some program for the map. Now let's say here I have a number that is num. Okay, let's say I have a variable num, and let me just take it to backside, otherwise it will show me indentation errors. Fine. So num is equal to, now here let's say I just declare a list. Okay. Now what is list? How we declare that? I would just repeat the same thing that I have already covered the topics in my previous video. So you can just go and have a look over there. Fine. 2, 3, 4. Fine, so this here I just made a simple list. Fine, so this is a list which I have just made that right now. What next I have here? Next I would be just taking, let's say I just take variable sq. Fine. Now here I just wrote list list. Fine. Here I would be using my map function. Fine, map. Inside this map, I would be using my lambda function. So basically, we use the lambda functions with the map, reduce, and filter. So both with all these three functions, we can use the lambda functions. So the SQ is one of my variables. I just put equal to sign list, and list was my type, data type. I put the map. Map is the function, and inside that I use the lambda. Lambda x is I would put the colon. So here, what I would be doing, I would just multiplying x and x. That means I'm just going to square both of these values, right? So x comma x, and here I would just put a comma, and here I would just write as now. So this means what it is going to do, it is going to give me the square, fine, and I will just write here as sq. Now first let's quickly run it and see the output for it. Fine. Now see that here what did I get? I just got the values and the squares for all of the values which I have written in my list. So if I'm just going to do this thing using my for loop, using my condition, so it will take 5 to 6 lines of code, right? It will take my code to just double or just triple lines, fine. So whatever code we have written, it will just take it to double or triple. But using my map function, what I have just done, I have just used written this code in a very single line, with 2 lines for the declaration, only one line for the whole concept, right? So this is basically, it was written previously that map, reduce, and filter. All these three functions are basically used to write your code shorter and make your code simpler, and yeah, all that things, fine. So this was the use of my map function. Now let's say I just x multiplied by this was the square. Let's take some more examples here. Fine, I would just comment this thing for a while, and I will even close my output window. Fine. Here let's do one thing. Let's make some functions, okay? I would just make a function diff, and the name for my function would be square, and in bracket I would pass in the parameter as a. Fine, and here I would just return. Now here I'm using return because I want to make a normal function, not a generated function. Fine, that is why I'm just using the return. If I need to make a generated function here also, then I would be passing that yield instead of this return. Fine. Now that way square is done, and the third one, which I'm basically I'm just going to make cube, is here also it pass a, and I would just return a multiplier. Okay, just 1 second. Where is my multiplication? Okay, a multiplication, a. Fine. I have just made 2 functions right now and just return the values in that. That's okay. Now here what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to make a function is equal to, and here I will just write as square, comma, and cube. I will just write the name of both of the functions which I have just made right now. Fine. Now what I would just write, for I in range. Okay, for I in range. Now here what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to pass the value as 4 here. Fine. I would just go inside. Now here I would just use as value is equal to list. Fine. Here in the bracket I would just use as map. Map is my function which I'm just using, and I would just use as lambda here. Lambda. Fine. I would just lambda x colon x of I. Fine. One single I. Just 1 second. Fine. And now what I would be doing, and here I would be putting one command. I would just writing here as function. Function was the variable in which we have stored both of the functions, that was square and cube. Fine. I would come out of my function right here, and I would just print here value. Fine. And I would just run my program for now. See what I just got here. I just got the values as 9,27. Fine. So this is the whole idea about using this a cube and return functions this side. Fine. Now if I just take this print inside my this class, okay, inside this, and now if I just run my program, okay, then let me do it. Fine. Now what it is giving me, it is giving me the square, and it is even giving me the cube of all the 4 values which we have taken. So I have taken the range as 4. Okay, so it will go from 1 till 3. So 0 till 3. So 0 square for 0 is 0, and cube for 0 is also 0. Same condition with 1. The square for 2 is 4, and the cube for 2 is 8. The square for 3 is 9, and the cube for 3 is 27. And series still will go on. Whatever the value you are going to mention here, the series will go on till that thing. Fine. This is the whole idea about using the map function. How you can just reduce your code, how you can just make your code simpler by using the map function. That thing I have just showed you right now. fine. So this is about the use of map function. Now let's comment this thing quickly and let's do the things for reduce and filter itself, fine. So I would just go down, and here I would just like write here as, I would put that comment itself, right, as we have done previously. So this, and here I would just write as, okay, I would just use as my filter function, because in that reduce you will be just using to like import something, right? I would just use here as filter, because in the reduce we will be using some extra like modules to be importing module, right? So first finish up with filter. Now here let's say I just quickly make a list one, okay? One of my list I have just made, and I just put some values 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Here I would just make a function def greater, fine. Def greater, and in bracket I'm just gonna pass as number. I will just put the colon and then down. And here I would just write as return number greater than 1. Okay, return number greater than 1. And here I would just write as greater is equal to list. Now here what I'm just going to use, I'm just going to use my filter function, okay, filter. And here I'm bracket, I'm just going to pass the greater is one of my functions. And here what I have the list one. So list one is the variable in which I have stored my values, and here I would just print as greater. So print greater. Now let's quickly run the program. Fine. Okay, so what I just got here, I just got the values as 2, 3, 4, and 5. So one is basically the condition which I have just given here, that print me all of the numbers which are greater than 1. So it printed me 2, 3, 4, and 5, because all of these three are all these 4 are greater than 1. Let's I just change the condition and just make it to 3. Okay. Now in the output I would be getting only and only 4 and 5, because only 4 and 5 are greater than 3. And rest 1, 2, and 3 are less than 1 and 2 are less than 3. Yeah. So that's the idea about using that filter function. Basically, this is how you can just use your filter function for making any program easy and simpler. Fine. Moving towards the last topic for today, and here I will just put some comments, and here I will just write as reduce. So as mentioned in the definition, and as I have also told that using the reduce function, what we'll be needing, we'll be needing to import a like particular module, right? So that import I would just write here as from func tools. So func tools is the module from which you'll be importing, right? From func tools import reduce. Reduce is the function which we have imported right now. Okay. I would just make one list. Let's say the name for my list is list 2. Fine, I would just put a equal to sign. Inside this, I will just pass some values. 5, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9. Done. Now what I'm just going to do here, let's say I just wrote here num is equal to. Now let's say what I just want to do, I would just want to add I add numbers. I just want to get the final sum of all of these numbers. Fine. So if I just want to do this thing using my for loop, then how would I have done that thing? I'm just going to tell you this thing right now. Okay. Now I would just write here for I in list 2. Okay. I in list 2. Let's say I just want to get the sum of all of these numbers. So for like that thing, what I have done using my for loop, how I have done. So I've written for I in list 2. Okay. What else I have done? I have written here num is equal to num plus I. Okay, num is equal to num plus I. And here inside, like after this, I have printed my num. Fine, print num. So this is how basically I have done my program. If I just want to get the sum of all of these numbers using my for loop. So sum which I just got here is 35. That is fine. Okay. Now, how my things can become very simple using my reduce function. I will just show you that thing. So using that for loop, we have just written this thing like this, right? Now I would just do same thing. I would just write here num is equal to, here I would just use my function that is reduce. Fine. Reduce here I would just use as okay, lambda. Fine, lambda x comma y. Okay, lambda x comma y. I would put the colon. Now here what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to do x plus y. Okay, and here I'm just going to pass as list 2. Fine, and I would just print my num. Print num. Now let's quickly run that thing. Now see here what I'm just getting. I'm getting the same output which I have got using my for loop. Basically, this is how you can use your reduce function, your map function, your filter function to make your codes written simpler, easier, like easy to understand and all that things, fine. So here I have just written that code in 4 lines and here I have just written that in single one line, fine. So this is the use of reduce, map and filter functions, right? So I hope today you just got all the all idea about the topics which we have discussed. First one was the generators. We have discussed about that what are generators, what is the use of making generators. Then we have seen method overloading and method overriding, that what are these like used for. Thirdly, what we have seen the map, reduce and filter functions, all of these three functions, fine. So this is like a whole Python topics which I have covered right now, okay. So this was the all of the topics which we can take in Python basically, fine. Now this is like like whole course for that Python is completed right now, okay. So just 1 second, I just want to, yeah. So basically one thing just right here, one thing right now, what we have discussed basically in my last video, what I have discussed, I have told you about decorators, right? So in that we have just taken very first example. So I was just telling you how to delete and how to copy that number. So in that basically we were just getting one error, right? So let's quickly see that what was that error and how to just solve that thing. Then we'll just end this video, fine. Here what I have done, I have just made that fun1 function, right? So here what I have done, I have just forgot to put these brackets this side. Fine, fun2 is equal to fun1, and yeah, I just remove this thing for a while and I would just like run this once. Fine, I would just run it for once. Okay, so now what it has been, it has printed me, it has now printed me fun with data science, fun with data science. So basically what was happening, and yeah, just let me just comment this down one, okay. I just 1 second. Okay, fine. Now let's run that once more. Okay, now see basically what is happening now. Again here it is printing me fun with data science second time. Even I have deleted my fun2 because I have made the copy of this one. Okay, so that is why it is printing me the same thing right now. Okay, so I hope it has got the whole idea about the generators, about the method overloading and overriding, about the decorators which we have, sorry, about the map, reduce and filter functions which we have discussed later. So here we complete the whole basics for Python course.